Hello, this is Jennifer McGuire. So glad you're here. A few days ago, I went live sharing more ideas for creating keepsakes that you can include on your card, something that the recipient can take off and hang on display. This video is somewhat a follow-up to a video that I put up on my channel a few weeks ago, and I will put a link to that up here in the top right and in my description below if you want more ideas. So in this live, I did a lot of stenciling, die cutting. I created shaker cards, all different types of options of including a keepsake on your card. Now this is, again, an edited replay. So I'm shortening a much longer live video. So the editing isn't perfect. However, I think it'll give you some good ideas on what I covered in that live. If you want to learn more about what brushes I use and tips and techniques, I do encourage you to check out the full replay instead. It'll have a lot of information. I try really hard to stay on topic, so my lives really stay focused on crafting and answering lots of questions. So I did 2 batches of cards, and over on the full replay, I do have a bonus bit at the end, but in this video, I'm sticking to the card making only. All right, let's get started.
But I would recommend 1 per color family because really if you want, so I have more than needed. Really 1 per color family is good. If you want to switch from like a darker color to a lighter color, I just rub it off onto a cloth and I can switch. I recommend 1 per color family. I do, like if you use teal, I would recommend that in addition to green and blue. I also have like a periwinkle color and a purple. I have more here than I think you need, but I use them. I have linked in my list also the container that I like to use for these, but these are the 1-inch Pinkfresh brushes. You'll see that they blend beautifully. I really like these. And I call them the magic brushes. We'll also be using their smaller brushes. So they have a 1/2 inch, which I'll use today. And they also have 1/4 inch. And I'm using the same container for all of them. So these are the cards that we're gonna start with. Now, I did a video the other day on cards with keepsakes, where you can take a little something out of it and the recipient can kind of hang it up to remind, to have on display so that they know that you're thinking of them. And I really liked doing that. I really liked the idea of cards with keepsakes. So I thought I'd do more of those today. If that's not your jam, I will be sharing other things that you can do, with the similar kind of technique. So I have these 4 cards here, and there's actually different seasons here. So you have spring, summer, fall, and winter. Okay, and they're made with the same product. But what's cool about these, what I did is I made it so it's a little keepsake that comes out. Oh, come on, focus. This one happens to be a shaker, and you can write a personal message on the back, and it tucks in here so that you can, mail it to the recipient. Okay, so there's a little message in there that hides behind the one that's on the card. And so this is just another way to hold a little keepsake that the recipient can remove and hang up anywhere they want, like on a little knob or on a bulletin board. I just think it's nice. And I'll just write a message in there that says, you can remove the keepsake on the front. Now, this one's a shaker. I did do versions that aren't shaker in case somebody prefers a non-shaker. And I'll show you how to do both. This is the summer version, which I love. And I stamped, "I can't wait to see you." You can write something personal on the back. You could put a photo. I think it'd be fun to add a photo here. Whatever you prefer. And I hide that little sentiment behind it. Then this one says, "Everything is going to be okay," which I think is very encouraging sentiment. This one's not shaker, but I did add some gems. Then the final one is this one here, which is a shaker too, and it says, you are not alone, okay? So there are 4 here. You actually make all 4 of the stenciled circles at the same time. I did do different backgrounds on each, but I'll demonstrate some of that, okay? This is what I'll be using. This is called 4 Seasons. There is a stencil set, and there is a die. And what happens is you can stencil all 4. So you stencil summer, spring, winter, and fall all at the same time, And then you have one die that cuts out the circles and adds like the detail, like the faux stitching. Because if you look real close, do you see that the rays are like a stitching and the waves have some faux stitching on it? So we will do all 4 at once, but I'm going to turn one of them into a card. I'll turn summer into it. So this is 4 seasons. And I really like this set because I feel like it's one that you can use a lot because you can use all the seasons, right? You could put all 4 on one card if you wanted to, like on a bigger card. And you could do this for a lot of occasions, right? You can use fall for a fall birthday card, a lot of different things. Okay, so this is the first stencil, and you can't see it on the screen, but it says this is the winter, this will be the fall, this is the summer, and this is the spring. Now I did the cards that I showed you, and I wrote down what colors I used in permanent or in a Sharpie so that I knew what to do today. You could always do that and leave that on there so that if you figure out how you like to do it, you can just leave it on there. Thank you, Brian. You could leave it on there, but if you want to clean the Sharpie off, you just use rubbing alcohol. Okay? All right, so I'm put down, this is stencil number 1. It says it up there. It's just hard to see in the video. Now I want to do, it's hard to see, but I want to do all the openings in Ocean Breeze, except this little opening here on Summer, which is the sand. I'm going to do that in a different color. So I've got my Ocean Breeze here, and I'm going to apply it with my Pinkfresh magic brushes. So these are the 1-inch brushes that I love so much. It's also good if you want to do a soft blend. Say, I'll show you this now. Say you want like a soft blend right here at the center and fade out. You can start and kind of fade your way out. I'm going really light-handed, and look at how you can, if you've ever wanted to get like a little glow behind a stamped image, super easy. So I find the reason I like them, the first reason I like them is I don't get like that harsh like mark because the bristles are flat and soft. I don't get that harsh mark when I bring it to my paper. So I really like that. But then I also love how easy it is to blend. I do feel like you can also control the amount of color you're putting down better with it. So like, I don't know, have you ever come in with a dark ink and when you bring it with the blending brush to your paper, you just get too much right away? This, you can take a dark ink and you can easily do a light layer of that. Does that make sense? I'm hoping that makes sense. Here I'm coming in, the first one was Ocean Breeze. Here I'm coming in with just a touch of turquoise kind of at the base of these openings, just to do a little bit of contrast, I guess, for the sand. Now this one you can see I use dark ink last. So what I'll do is just rub off some of that extra ink on my dry cloth. And now, yep, that's good. I'll come in here and do this. All right, so there is stencil number 1. So we've got the start of winter, fall, spring, and summer. And see how beautifully that blended? I mean, even here off the edge, you can see how it fades out nicely. Next up, stencil number 2. And by the way, I'm working on a glass magnetic mat. And that way I have these magnets that are holding my stencil in place. And I really like working that way. This is just a clear like matte that I use in my Misty, but I'm using it to mask off the ground here so that I can do different colors. Up here I'll do like a light, very light amount of blue for the snow, like really light. And you'll see I was able to use this color that's very dark. Well, it's not very dark, but it's darker, right? And I'm gonna get a super light application of color. I'll show that to you in a moment. Now you'll notice that there are these little triangles in here. Do you see these little triangles in the stencil? Those are so that we can line up, actually I'm gonna do all of this green here, so that we can line up the die in a moment. So just ignore those for now. Now this fall one up here, I wanted to add some like fall colors to it. So you can see, look at how light I was able to make this color that light. by doing a very soft hand with the brush, the big magic brush. That's one of the reasons I call it magic. Stencil number 3. There we go. That is stencil number 2 or 3. Can you see how it's building up these scenes? Isn't that fun? 4 at once. Yeah, yes, you know how to. Oh, look at that. That's fun. All right, so there you go. Look at all those. Look at that. Isn't that fun? See those triangles that the stencil set made? There are triangles in the die. And the only reason those triangles are there, they don't actually cut. They are so that you can line up. You can see through the triangle hole, and the hole of the triangle is exactly the same size as the triangle that you inked. And you just line it up so that these triangles are lined up with the holes in the die. So now I'm going to run that through. Okay, so now look at this. See the little detail that it adds? There's a little faux stitching in the rainbow. There's little snowflakes in the sky, and then the grass. Isn't that fun? Aren't these fun? This is the Embroidery hoops die set. So it creates a large embroidery hoop and a smaller one, and then also the little thingies that go at the top. The smaller one lines up with this perfectly. So that's what I'm going to use now. Is what I have here is I have 6 white embroidery hoop die cuts glued together. I just use liquid adhesive to glue it together so you can see how it's nice and thick. And that will form the walls of my shaker keepsake. I also found in my stash just a circle die. And this circle die is a little bit smaller than the outside diameter of the embroidery hoop. So this will be kind of like my backing. I'm putting some adhesive. So I'm putting some glue on here. I'm going to put some glue on the back. This is my stacked die cuts. So this is Pinkfresh, and it's new. I don't know. I think it might have come out today. I think it came out today. So I'm gluing that circle so that this fits perfectly in there. Now the same circle die that I used to cut that blue circle, this is slightly smaller than the outside edge. I'm going to cut a piece of acetate. So the way that I like to cut acetate is the key to it, to make sure it cuts all the way through, is this. You take the die face down onto the acetate, and then you take a scrap piece of cardstock behind it. So can you see the acetate is sandwiched between a scrap piece of cardstock and the die. So the acetate is sandwiched between a scrap piece of cardstock and the die. And by putting that piece of scrap cardstock behind the acetate, it helps the die cut through that acetate. Okay, so see how that cut through that acetate? No problem. Okay, so I've got that acetate there. Now let's fill this. Oh, by the way, on my other versions, I stamped a little sentiment in there. I'll show you what that is in a moment. I'm not going to bother stamping the sentiment right now, but you could stamp, "I can't wait to see you," and I'll show you that in a moment. But I'm not going to do that right now just to save time. Those tiny diamonds in there. You could use any kind of sequins here. I'm using the tiny diamonds because they're clear and they won't like distract too much from the pretty inking. All right, so I've got a circle acetate and I'll lay that right on top, and I'll put something heavy on it. Now I'm putting liquid adhesive on top of the acetate. You could use double-sided tape here, whatever you like, and some adhesive on top of the screw. So can you see there's adhesive around there and on top of the screw? And now I have one last circle die for the front, or die cut for the front, and that will sandwich the little screw at the top so it won't come down out, and sandwich in that acetate. Okay, so that will be the front of our shaker. Now we also need our shaker to have, we want to turn this into a keepsake that you can remove and hang on display. So I need some string. I'm just using some thin silver string. I think we have it linked below. Comes in silver and gold, and you could use other things, but this is inexpensive. All right, so I'm taking a piece of that silver string and I'm folding it over. It's a little bit thinner than like thread, or thicker than thread. See how I got a loop there and the two ends are here? I'm going to take that loop and put it through my embroidery hoop, and then I've got the loop up here. I'm going to take the two ends and pull it through the loop. So you can see the loop there's the loop, and then I wrap the two ends through. I'll hold that up so you can see. And then I'll just tighten that. And now we have, let me just push that over to the side. See how we have it hooked on there? And the two ends are coming out. So this is a great way to hook that string on there so that I can just come to the back. Oops. Now I'll flip my little keepsake over, put some glue on up here on the top and right around the edge. Now I'm going to take that and put it right on the back. So now that string is on the back and coming out the top. You've got a nice place to write a personal message back here or put a photo. And then on the front, you have a nice shaker. This is the Dashing Daisies press plate, and I just love that pattern. So we're going to use the Better Press system. I have over on that live page links to some videos I've done with the Better Press if it's new to you. This is the Better Press system. Hi Kelly, if you don't have the Better Press system, you can use this with your die cut machine and your embossing mat and make an impression. I have lots of videos. So I tape a piece of thin plastic onto my Better Press so that I can easily wipe away ink if I get it on the background. It's just what I do. Then I put the press plate onto it. This is magnetic and I'll hold that in place. Now on this piece, which goes right on top of the Better Press, I'm going to put a little bit of tape runner on the back of a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece of Aqua Sky cardstock. So I have that lined up in the little tick marks, and here I have it lined up in the tick marks. Now, as far as what inks you can use with the Better Press, I have found any ink works. Any ink works. I've really found that. I like dye inks a lot, white pigment ink and metallic inks, the pigment inks. Those are my favorites. So dye inks like this Pinkfresh, white pigment ink or metallic ink. You just ink up the raised area, that's waterfall ink. Then you take the cardstock, put it face down. Now there's a little gap there, so it's kind of hovering above it. It's not touching yet. But when you run it through your Spellbinders Platinum 6, it'll press it down and it gives you kind of a faux letterpress look. But really for me, the thing that I like most about this is it gives crisp results and it's foolproof. So look how crisp the detail is on that. That's hard to get with the stamp, and see how there's a little bit of an impression? And it was foolproof. Like you don't really even have to ink it well, and look how good that is. Now, if I didn't ink it well and I wanted to do multiple colors, I can re-ink it, pop it back on and run it through again, and it'll like make it darker or add another color. But I'm going to leave this as is. Let me show you on this one here, on the background here of this card, I used the same one, but on here, I did the same process I just did, but I used white pigment ink. And look at that white detail you get. Isn't that gorgeous? Yeah, Ray, I'm the same way. I love the Better Press. I did not cut it right. So see how I didn't cut it right? So what I'll do is just get these 3 sides right, the top and the sides, and then I'll trim off a little bit from the bottom. I'm using the sentiment that says, I've been missing you. I really like that sentiment. So I stamped that sentiment with black ink on a white cardstock strip. This little strip is going to be what holds our little keepsake in place. So it's a little like, creates like a little, and I have foam squares here, and I'm going to cut 2 of them in half, so I have 4 halves. I will flip this, I'm flipping this over, and I'm laying my little keepsake onto it, so I know where to put the foam tape outside. I'll put one of my halves of foam tape right up against the edge of the, see how it's like right up against the edge? Do you see that? Then I'll do one on the other side right up against the edge. You want it pretty snug. So I'm going to hold it there and put that right at the edge. So see, I have these 2 halves of a foam tape, and this will, let me just test to make sure. Yeah, that goes, it fits in there without sliding too much. Just fits perfect. So then I will I'll remove the lace paper on that. And I want this to be taller because remember, this is a shaker that's really thick. If you did a non-shaker version, which I have here, you only need 1 layer of foam tape. But for this one, you need 2 when it's a shaker. Does that make sense? Tell me if this is making sense. So this is another way to hold a keepsake on the front of your card. I've done a video recently, it's like 3 videos ago, showing other ways of adding a keepsake to your card, something that you can remove. This is just another version. And I'll put it right at the center of my card. So now there's that little bridge, and I can tuck my keepsake behind the bridge, and that will hold it in place. So you could do this for ornaments for the holiday season, but also you can use it all year round. So let me show you, so this is the one I just did, but let me show you some of the others, some of the things that I did on the others. This is the fall version. For the background, do you see that fun background there? It's got lots of detail to it. I love that detail. Isn't that fun? That is created with the stitched chain cover plate. I love Pinkfresh cover plates because it does this piercing or faux stitching detail, but it doesn't cut the outside edge. So you can do this directly on the front of a note card. But look at that, oops, look at all that fun pattern on the background. The Thinking of You stamp set, I think this is an older one. It has everything is going to be okay. I will always be here for you, thinking of you today and always, and you're not alone, which I think all would be good on a keepsake. So I did the everything is going to be okay on this one. And then on the winter one, I did You Are Not Alone. And this is the Thinking of You stamp set. It does this beautiful image. There's also coordinating stencils, press plates, and dies, but I just used the stamp set. That's the fall version. The winter version, I used that Dashing Daisies with white pigment ink and my press plate. And the You Are Not Alone is from that same Thinking of You stamp set. Or for the So Glad We're Friends and the I Can't Wait to See You. So I have So Glad We're Friends, Can't Wait to See You. There's some others that would work on it. This is the Fresh Herbs. It has all the coordinating products, but I just used the stamp set. So I did I Can't Wait to See You from the Herb Garden. I'm sorry, it's Herb Garden on this one. And So Glad We're Friends from the Herb Garden on my summer version. This is Interlaced Diamonds. So there's a die and there's a press plate, and they coordinate. Here I use the die alone, just to give a little detail to the background. Here I did the press plate first, then I used the die, and you can see there's like a thin line in that background die. So I did, on the background of these two is the Interlaced Diamonds.
All right, so there is my first batch of cards. Keep in mind, if you don't have the same products as me, you could use any circle die and create whatever you want on it to create a keepsake in a similar fashion. All right, now let's move on to the second batch of cards.
So what I'll use next is Floral Kaleidoscope. Now it's floral, but it's a completely different look than what I've had, like different kind of floral cards I've done. I'm trying to do not just big florals on my cards. So this is something that is really fun because you can use this set to get different looks and mix and match them together. And it's really, really quite fun. And it creates lots of different elements that you can mix and match together to make kind of a focal point on your card. And then there are coordinating stencils that allow you to color it in very quickly. And there are dies that allow you to cut them out very quickly. Let me show you how this works. And then I'm going to show you lots of different ways you can put it together. I have like halfway completed some things. There is this one big stamp. See how that's one big stamp? And I stamped it down here. Okay. Then there is also one big stamp here. So there's two big stamps in this set. And what you can do is stamp the big stamps, one or both, then stencil very quickly, one or both, and then use a die to cut them out, one or both. Okay, so what I did here was stamp one up at the top of the paper and one at the bottom. Instead of doing black on this, I did Metropolis, which is a dark gray from Pinkfresh. just to do something different. So this is just another idea, and I thought it was genius of Gina. So on one side you have stamping, on one side it's super smooth and allows you to hold your paper and stencils in place. I just wanted to mention that because I've been getting a lot of questions. There are 3 stencils. At the top is for one of the images, and at the bottom is for the other image. So I'm going to do something that's just going to freak you all out. I love to freak you all out. There are etch marks on here that say Stencil 1, Design 1, and Design 2. So the top is for Design 1 from the stamp set, the bottom is from Design 2 from the stamp set. And there are little etch marks to help. But I'm just going to cut mine in half. This is Stencil 1, Design 1. This is Design 1, this is Design 2, because it's the 2 different stamps, okay? So I'm going to line up Stencil 1 for Design 1. It's all etched on there. And I'm just lining it up the best I can. And then the stencil there kind of grips onto the grip mat and holds it in place. And I'll do some green over that. Stencil 2. See how fast I can ink with this nice brush? But I can also control whether I get light or dark amounts of ink. This is the 3rd stencil for Design 1. One thing to note, you use just this side here. It has text here in a box that says option 2. So I'm just going to ink that for these. This area here, I won't ink here. That's just something I can use individual. So what you can do, I'm going to cut it apart. I know this will freak you out, but I'm going to do it anyways. Because this is just like another stencil they included. Isn't that fun? So the beautiful wreath, and it'll fit the die too. So you don't have to do that. I can always put them together again. If I want to use them together, I can just tape them together. Because I cut it like an odd angle. So I can always put them back together. I'm just doing this quickly. This is bubble gum. I really like the pinks that Pinkfresh has, ironically. Okay, so there you can see the inked options, or all the inked pieces. All right, so let's go ahead and set that aside. So that's Design 1. Now this is Design 2. There is this circle right here that's stamped. You can take this stencil and line that up, and it allows you to color that in. Okay, but you could also skip that. I mean, there's different options, or you can do this, which lines up with this, and it gives you another option. So you can either do this circle or these images, and you can do these without the stamp. So there's different ways you can use this all together, okay? So I'm not gonna worry about this side. I'm only doing these elements because I need some of these elements. So you can do whatever you want on the other side, but I'm not gonna bother. And there's little triangles here so that if you don't use the stamp set and you need help lining things up, you can. Now I'm just gonna go, now this, you can see it's overlapping with that stamp image. That's okay. I just wanted to demonstrate. All right, next stencil, I'm gonna come in and I can line up my triangles, or I just line up the part of the image over here. Use that. Okay, here's the last stencil here. This one will color in that. Now, a lot of companies are coming out with just press plates because you can use them in your butter press and on your foil machine. So there are different options here. Now this little pattern here I could have done separate from that little circle. There's just different ways you could do it, but I'm not using that element, so I didn't really care. This one goes on here, and see how it lines up with all of those. The other thing is there is this little piece that you can cut out the center if you want to make it a wreath. I don't want this to shift. I don't usually need it with my magnet. Let's run that one through with my magnetic sheet. So now this one, I can line up the triangles, but I can also just look through and see it line up with the stamps. That's how you use those. Now I did a bunch of this work off screen because I wanted to save time. I'm going to turn these little elements into keepsakes. So here's like all the different options we have, and I just showed you how to make them. You could arrange them onto, but I wanted to make it bigger. So I'm using this Decorative Circle standalone die set. This is from Pinkfresh. There's 3 dies in here. And this one works really well, and the pattern is proportional to go along with all the elements you create in this. So this is the floral kaleidoscope that I create all these elements with, and this is the decorative circle. But you could also, if you don't want to use a decorative circle, just grab a big circle die, and you could make it that way. So let me show you some things that I did here. First of all, with the simplest element, it's this one here. So this is one of the elements we created. For my example just now, I cut out the inside to make it a wreath. Here I just left it whole. All right. I did this one off screen. I did all of my stamping on this off screen ones that I prepped. I did gold heat embossing. So earlier I stamped in gray, the Metropolis color. For all my examples, I did gold heat embossing. I added one of those stenciled circles and then the smaller stencil circle. So it's got a lot of layering to it. And what I'll put on the center here, I'm going to put an initial. You could put a sentiment. You could put like a long sentiment strip on there. You could put a little photo if you wanted to. You could put a little stamp sentiment right at the center if you wanted to. So I'm going to put an S on there. And the S I did with gold cardstock. And look at that. It makes it special because it's personalized, right? So I'll set that aside. Let me demonstrate how I put these pieces together. See how it cuts all these different elements that you can put together in a different kaleidoscope look. So this is where you can get really creative. I did each of the elements twice, all that stamping die cutting twice, so I could have 2 of each. You could do 4, and it would just be this big circle of floral. But what I'm going to do is take some of the other elements and put them together in here. Get there. Doobie-doo. Isn't that fun? I love that. Remember, it has all these different pieces. I didn't use them all. I only used this one, and that one. So now I have the others to make another circle. So I did the same thing for this. And I glued different pieces together to build that kaleidoscope, which is different. It looks different than this one. It's using the other elements, so nothing went to waste. Okay, so on this one, which is my other S card, I used the leftover elements and just glued them together. So there's different ways to put these together to create different kaleidoscope looks using the same set. And then there was, remember, this one from the same set too. But I love these that you can mix and match in different ways. So on here, I glued them all down onto one of my decorative circle die cuts, which by the way does faux piercing on the end, or on the edge. I did gold gemstones, and then I did a gold S in the center. So far we have these 3. I'm gonna let that dry a little more. Let me show you the alphabet set, because I'm really digging this alphabet set. I used the S on both of those. This is the Jody, lowercase and uppercase. So you have the Jody lowercase and the Jody uppercase. And you can see there's like some fun quirks to the letters, which I think is great. Pinkfresh has had a lot of great alphabets over the years. And you can see there is like a piercing detail to it. And this is something that really makes your keepsake even more special because you personalized it. So I have So Glad We're Friends, which I stamped from the Herb Garden stamp set that I showed you earlier. I stamped it onto a tiny circle die cut. I just looked through my circles to find it. And I've matted it with a gold circle. And that I'll glue right at the center of my little pattern here. Now, let me show you how I turn this into a keepsake, because I always like to hook my cord or my string onto the top, not just glue it between the layers, because I don't want it to slide out. What I like to do is make sure there's a way it hooks on. Like on the last examples, it hooked on the top of our embroidery hoop. I'm going to take a hole punch and just punch a hole at the top, anywhere really. Let me see, I'm going to do it in that one. At the top of one of my decorative circles. So this is decorative circle that will be covered up, but there's a hole at the top now. So now I can take my string, create a little loop, put the loop through the hole, pull the loop out here, and then take the 2 ends and tuck it into the loop. Any way you want to hook it on is fine. So now we have the string attached to this. So now I can sandwich this between my layers, and it will have a string on the top. All right, so this element here, I'll just flip it over. Let's put some glue all around it. I do recommend something strong here. And then put this one at the top. Oop, I gotta make sure I've got it. Nope, gotta rotate it. So the string's coming out the top. Got that there. Now you could leave this as is and glue a little circle here. I think that's what I'll do. You could put another one on here if you want to hide that string, but I think I'm going to just take this circle right here. This is just, I did a circle, white circle and a gold circle, and this will give me a place to write a personal message back here. If you wanted to, you could instead add some more decorative elements, but now I've got a place to write a personal message here, and I've got the decorative front. You could also put a photo back there if you wanted to. But now these are little keepsakes that we can add to our card. This one I still need to add the string to. This is the chain stitch cover plate. And I'm going to use it with a piece. This is Concord and Ninth Nectar cardstock. Now this die does not cut like an outside edge. I have a 4 by 5¼ inch piece here. It just does like a piercing pattern. And I love Pinkfresh cover plates for this reason, because you could do this directly on the front of your note card if you wanted to. And look at that beautiful chain stitch pattern. Isn't that fun? I've got my Gina K grip mat. That's a stamp on one side and just stick on the other. I'm gonna lay this down just so it stays still. Just here I have passion fruit ink. This is a pretty bright ink. I mean, it's a pretty intense ink, but watch, you can go quite soft with it, okay? So I'm gonna just start in the middle. See how I can go really soft? And there's no harsh edge. It's magic. It's magic. And I'm just gonna go start kind of at the inside and work my way out. I wanna create like a focal point of darker color right there at the top center, so that when we put this on top, you see like a glow. And I was able to build up that color. Yeah. Okay, so that's my background there. I have a side folding white note card. I glue that right at the center of my side folding white note card. But what I'm gonna do is create 2 little slits at the top front of my card. I just did 2 little pencil marks about 1.5 inches in from each edge. You don't have to do that. You could eyeball it if you wanted to. So I'm just putting a little cut right where I did those pencil marks. And I just cut right up to where the peach starts. So that's at the top of our card. Now I can erase my pencil, and those little notches or grooves that I cut will be where we hang our string or hang our keepsake. Now I thought it'd be fun to have something on here too, so let's add that. That's a white die cut circle with the stamp greeting. You could put anything here, right? And a gold mat behind it. So I'll open up my card, and now I'm just gonna hold the keepsake where I want it to be, and then tuck one side of the string into that notch, and then tuck the other side into that notch. So see how it's kind of, can you see that? See how it's stretched across there? And on the inside, you just tuck that down. And so it hangs there on the front. So the recipient will see the movement right away. And when they take it off, there's a greeting underneath too. So that's how I would add these to a card. So I can do the same thing with the others. So now this will just come right out of those little notches, and it will stand up with it on the front still, even though it's heavy, because I'm using a heavyweight card base. All right, so that's a nice personalized keepsake that you can add to a card. And this is how the keepsake is. You can put whatever you want on the back, but it's something nice for them to hang up. That Glad We're Friends that's in the inside here, that is from the Grateful Greenery, another kind of non-florally set. It's a beautiful image. I love this press plate. Look at how pretty that press plate is. I used the Glad We're Friends from that.
All right, there is an edited shortened replay of the live that I did. I do really recommend checking out the full live, which I will link to at the end of this video and in my description below. If you're interested in the supplies I use, they are linked below in that description. And if you're watching this at the time the video went up, there are some great free gift offers with any order and a discount on the brushes I used today. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you soon.